Hi everyone, welcome to Raise to Rise podcast, a place where we discuss bite-sized wisdom nuggets with easy-to-follow practices to live a better life. Raise to Rise podcast is supported by Ayurvedic Seva. Ayurvedic Seva is an herbal dietary supplement line set out to change the industry by dedicating the company to quality, safety, and holistic approach on making the wellness journey safe, healthy, and natural. If you want to start adding some natural herbs in your life, then head over to ayurvedicseva.com and use our promo code RAISE2RISE for 30% discount. Once again, it's ayurvedicseva.com and use our promo code RAISE2RISE for 30% discount. I am your host, Mital Patel, a parenting junkie, Ayurveda enthusiast, and an advocate of conscious living. Hey. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Raise to Rise podcast. So happy to have you, each and every one of you. Today, we have a special guest with us. We have Sean Alden. He is a transformative mindset coach, a husband-to-be, and a father. He is a recovered alcoholic and has had to reinvent himself in a few times. He's been in some awful places and more than once that he actually thought of that he's never going to make out. Hence, he's so passionate about helping people long before they even reach that existential crisis point in their lives. And Sean actually helps his clients go deep within to figure out who they are so they can craft a life that will provide fulfillment and joy. Sean, first of all, thank you so much for coming to our show and welcome in. I really want to thank you for doing what you're doing because oftentimes we get so caught up on our survival mode that we don't even realize that this is coming. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you for coming to our show and just, welcome and share your wisdom over with us today.
Well, no, I really appreciate you having me. I appreciate your energy that you put out into the world. So very happy to be here and to collaborate and just to have some awesome discussion. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. No, and on that note, I really want to want everyone to know that how important this is, the mindset shift that we're looking into, because everything starts from there. And we don't realize because we're so caught up in our day-to-day life and we're like stuck in our auto, pilot mode. And so before we go into our discussion, could you please tell us a little bit about your experience in that situation where you thought that there's no way out? And we would love to hear your thoughts about, how can we become aware before we even reach that point?
Well, it's a very good question. I appreciate you going there because I think back often to, as I went through the program that we both went through, you're forced to do a lot of reflection, and take yourself back through your own journey. And I remember one reflection specifically of, what would have happened had I had a coach myself, right? Like at a certain age. And that was a pretty powerful reflection, right? Because, if you look at my own journey, and I could spend the entire time we have speaking about this, so I'm gonna abbreviate it as best I can. But it was just an increasingly negative place, right? And really the place I'm talking about is my mind, right? Because I, at some point in my life, just stopped asking good questions to myself, right? So I spent the latter part of my adolescence and basically the entirety of my 20s, living a life and chasing goals and things perhaps that were all borrowed, right? None of them were my own. I was chasing things that societally you're being led to believe will make you happy, right? So, I had no idea how I was going after them. The plan was not my own. I was going after things that were never going to make me happy because they were status symbols. And the further I went, frustrated that I wasn't achieving these things, frustrated that I wasn't accomplishing these things. I was having some, minor successes in career here and there, but I was really just lost, right? And over time, the sad part is with the addiction, with the alcoholism, is that the amount that worked for you at one point stops being enough very quickly, right? And then, the last couple of years of my addiction, the saddest part was that for about the last 3 to 4 years, right, about 26 to 30 years of age, when I finally hit rock bottom for the last time, is I knew right? Like I knew the entire time, right? Like there's a
Mm,
history on my father's side of,
mhm,
you know, of addiction and alcoholism. So I
mhm,
knew for a very, very long time that what I was doing wasn't healthy, but I knew this path. As
mm,
painful as it was, everything you hear about, you know, staying in something because you know it, even though it is
mhm,
painful, but you know your reality, there is a
mhm,
lot of truth in that because you have absolutely no idea how to fathom a way out. The amount that you were using before isn't enough, right? So and also a lot of alcoholics have very active minds, right? A lot of
mhm,
addicts and alcoholics have extremely active minds.
mm,
So for me, it was the only peace I ever got, right? I didn't have meditation back then. I didn't open as many books as I should. I didn't have any mindfulness practice. I didn't journal. I didn't have any outlets, you know,
mm,
for
to
the
channel
thoughts that
out.
were racing in my mind.
Mhm,
So the only thing I developed over time was numbing it and just
mm,
shutting it up, right? So the feeling of having that first drink, and then after a while it was like throughout the day I had to be drinking, and then, you know, I don't even know how I pulled off the last couple of years, to be honest, because I
mm,
was a constant mess, just staying afloat, basically trying to convince everyone in every area of my life that I had it together, and until, you know, I couldn't anymore, right? So,
mm,
you know, I drank myself into the hospital more than once. And it was just finally, you know, one lingering question. I was just kind of like, why am I just like, there are people in this world that love me. Like, why do I
mhm,
keep putting them through this?
mm,
You know, and then finally, like a question just kind of creeped in, right? It was like, well, you always said you wanted to be a father. Do you want to try and see if you can actually become that person? Right.
wow.
And because I knew I always wanted that job, I
Mhm,
decided I would go to my first AA meeting.
mm,
And that is finally when this curiosity, now it's been 7 years coming, right? And I didn't necessarily do the quickest trajectory. I got back into hospitality, but soberly this time, and
mm,
started climbing with a company in hospitality and did very well. But it was the fact that I switched my surroundings, I switched the way that I thought, I
mm,
changed up some habits, I welcomed in things like meditation, prayer, things that had been so foreign to me before. And by changing certain surroundings, changing certain habits and routines, my life could change that quickly, right? Now it's
wow.
been like a
Mhm,
staggered go of it.
mhm,
And, you know, now I've been
mhm,
almost 5 years, like truly sober. But that was the starting point, right? I was like, okay, this is really interesting, right? Like this, like
mm,
engineering the human mind a little bit. Like, how
yep,
the hell did I go from being such a mess with
mm,
no hope and no belief that anything good could ever happen in my life? My
mm,
self-talk was terrible, right? Terrible.
right.
You know, I used to tell myself stories like, you know, I'll just never earn six figures or more. That's just not who I am. As soon as I changed that story in my mind and got
Mm,
sober, I corrected that very quickly, right? So
wow.
it's just, and that's kind of why I'm still here, still in this space, and now like diving even deeper than
Mhm,
I ever have, because I've helped a few people now, right? I've
mm,
helped clients, you know, to massive transformations. I've helped, you know, other people, you know, achieve sobriety, and you know, I want to know more right now. I just want to dive further into this world, and it's not, you know, I do want to work with more alcoholics to help them get sober, but it's not
mhm,
just alcoholics that I want to work with. It's just
mhm,
people, right? I want more people to just have a more peaceful existence because
mm,
they find a way to deal with the noise better, right? And just have better
absolutely.
filters for living.
First of all, I really want to take this opportunity and say how you mentioned like 5 years completely that you've been off of that. So congratulations. That's a big achievement. Second thing is I truly understand your journey, and I have witnessed this journey with my husband. And when you're in that mess, it's like you don't know what to do unless somebody's like pulling you off. And I'm so glad that you had that realization and you asked that question like about you being a father because you wanted a dad job. That was such a like, it was a profound question that came to you, and you were able to pull yourself out of that because you wanted to be a father. That's an incredible, incredible journey. Thank you for sharing it. Thank you for being so open and, being so vulnerable with us. And because not that everybody is feeling so like, oh, I'm proud of myself that, I was an alcoholic back then and now I'm good. But you are openly sharing it. Hey, these were my roadblocks. Now my mess has become my message, and I really want to serve other people before they even get into that mess.
I want to write that down. My mess is now my message. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah. That's
And
very,
and that's what you're sharing, and I really love that. What you, before even people hit that bottom or hit that mess, you're trying to pull the people out and show them the other side, like, hey, this is where the joy is, this is where the fulfillment is. Just because you mentioned about your career, can you tell us a little bit more about how, are you still in that career? What's happening? And are you a father? Like, how's that father journey's been helping you?
the father journey has been amazing.
Yes.
We have one very healthy, truly amazing,
Oh.
beautiful little girl named Lily. She is absolutely a joy. Every day is actually amazing. As a result, the job is as good as I
Oh.
thought it was. Even when the 18-month sleep regression that's come early is happening right
Mm.
now, and I'm still up for a couple hours a night for the last week and a half,
But
it
it's still
doesn't really
joyful.
matter. It's just, she wakes up and smiles at you and you're like, you are forgiven, immediately. So I'm gonna have a hard time being the disciplinarian with my daughter. I can already
Yeah.
tell. But no, I'm not in my career anymore. This has been a very interesting year. I was working for an amazing company. It really
Mm.
was. I just wasn't happy anymore. There was no joy left. Once I was a new father, hospitality provided me a lot in my career. This last company that I was with, I helped, open a restaurant, a general manager, equity partner. I had a lot of fun and I learned a lot. I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful for the experience that I had, but that the last 6 years is on top of another 10 or 11 years in this industry. And
Mm.
it was just a grind physically, right? Also in the back of my mind, I had the fact that I had an aunt who had worked in restaurants for 20 plus
Mm.
years and wearing high heels, and she had arthritis in both hips, and it was really hard on her health, right? So, I was also thinking, like, I want to be around for a very long time, but I also want to do slightly more meaningful work, right? Like
Mm.
in terms of like helping people, because the favorite part of that job for me was taking somebody who was like a blank canvas, right? Who like thought they
Mm.
might want to be a manager, or they want to learn how to be a manager, and they want to get their first management contract, right? And once I got that person, this is when I fully came alive. Like when I got
Mm-hmm.
that person that was like, I want to be a manager, right? But they're
Mm.
like, they're lost otherwise. They look like lost puppies and they have no idea what they're doing. And to be like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to build a plan. We're going to get you there. And, from the starting point, it was just like, nothing else really matters if you don't believe you can. So do you believe you
Mm.
can? Right. And that's kind of where I started with everybody, not really knowing exactly why it was working, but
Mm-hmm.
I had a very different approach, and I just spent the majority of the starting of their time training into management about just impacting the questions that they ask themselves, right?
Mm.
And at the end of the day, it's like, can you see yourself succeeding, right? So I was helping them visualize the end point, like getting to the end, or like being the
Mm.
successful manager. So I was doing some things that, having done a lot more like official training in the space,
Mm-hmm.
realized why it was working. But that
Mm.
was what I loved most about the job, right? So what I realized is, whatever I do next, I need to be doing it more often where I'm specifically working with people that
Mm.
want to get the most out of their lives, whatever that is, right? And like usually, and I have some clients now who have had the financial success, but you've
Mm-hmm.
heard this classic saying,
Oh,
similar to
yeah.
where I was,
Yep.
where, they're working very hard and they do have the financial success, and they're trying to figure out why that isn't enough, right? Because
Mm.
we all grew up being led to
Yep.
believe that if you make that cash, get that house, find your partner, have a
Yep.
couple kids, that you've got that cookie cutter nuclear family and everything's good,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Wrong.
And it's not working. It's not
Mhm.
working until we're in that space. So basically what I hear is you've been always that working that what I also heard is like the mindset work that you've been always doing it, and now you're niching in the mind as a mindset coach. Since you're in that space and you have moved on to the coaching career, I really would like to know a bit about the barriers and obstacles that one would face prior to getting onto this journey of fulfillment or joy. Like, how do we know that this is what I really want? So as a mindset coach.
Getting people to that place. I mean, as a mindset coach, as anybody trying to shift somebody's perspective
Mm.
into opening their mind even slightly that there can be better, there needs to be some readiness from the other party. Like, unfortunately, no coach is a miracle worker.
Mm,
And, unless like somebody was put in front of like a Robin Sharma, or, like a Gabby Bernstein, or one of these powerhouses, or like a Tony Robbins, then you're probably gonna be like, oh, wow, I need to pay attention. Right. But otherwise, it has to be the individual wanting to change, right? Like
yeah.
I can only do so much if there
Mhm.
isn't a little bit of a desire to just kind
Mm,
of want to live better. And it just kind of comes down to the story that you tell yourself, right? So like the only way
mm,
that I can could potentially get there, it's funny, I do have one client that was a complete accident. Like this, wasn't
mhm,
expecting to have this person as a client,
mhm,
but it just kind of started as a conversation about more or less trying to make fun of what coaching is, right? And like
mm,
so what do you even do, right? Like, well, what is coaching even?
uh-huh.
And then, halfway through our conversation, I was like, so you're kind of being coached now, like just an FYI. So,
Mm,
like, are you okay with like this conversation continuing the way that it is? And he was like, yeah. And like, we
yeah.
talked for another like 45 minutes,
Uh,
and it wasn't even intended to kind of be a coaching conversation. This person had
mm,
just never had somebody in their life ever just dedicate time to them and just ask them about how they felt, and how their life was, and like what they really wanted, and if this path was going to lead to something fulfilling. And
mm.
that turned into a client as well, right? So it's I don't sorry, I've kind of gone on a bit of a tangent here, and I can't remember if I
No,
answered your
no,
question
no,
or
yeah,
not.
yeah, no, no, we got it. Like, it's the willingness that people needs to have, like, people need to have if they really want that change. It's
Yes.
the, acceptance from their side. It's the coach cannot do, anything unless there is that, okay, yes, I want to change, or,
No, but what the
I
coach
come
can
from,
do,
coach can
is
do.
that once there is that desire, then
Oh,
a good coach can be your lightning in a bottle, right? Like if you
definitely.
have a good coach that is truly committed to your
Yes.
success, once you have that desire, then
Mm,
I highly recommend you find a coach,
yes,
right?
yes.
Because like this is something that I think a lot of people like are still like it's becoming more and more popular, right? I read a
Mm,
study that heading into 2021,
mm-hmm,
I can't remember who did the study, so forgive me, but basically more people than ever
mm,
are considering spending a decent chunk of their income on self-help, right? There's
mm,
more of an
mm-hmm.
appetite for this than there ever has been historically, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you got to ask yourself, right? When people get more important, make more money, they get busier, their team grows, right?
Yeah.
So their team gets bigger. They have an assistant, they have a PR person, they have this planner, they have event planners. Well, the individual historically has not had access to a team, right? But if
Yeah.
you do well enough now, and you want to push yourself to get better, and you want to push yourself to live beyond what you ever thought was possible before, you make enough money and you're willing to make an investment in yourself. That's kind of what the personal coach is doing nowadays, right? Is like
Mm-hmm.
giving the individual access to their kind of small team to
Yeah.
dedicate the energy to helping them get ahead, right?
And to
So
to add to that point too, like I really want to jump in and also mention that, as a coach, it's like, because we humans, like, again, to that point, that we're so stuck in our maintaining daily lives, like, and it's just becoming complex and complex with the, with being a parent or having kids, and yeah, we're juggling like all over the place. And a coach, or a guide, or even if you don't want to coach, and if you go, we all are seeking for that person who would give us that space and allow us to speak and just listen to us. Right now, in the time that we're living, we don't have that, that person or that space where somebody's there to listen to us. And I feel that, coaching is what that, I have personally benefited from that, like where somebody else is like just, listening to me, to listen to me, and like they're, reassuring me that this is what I said. In general life, when you have a conversation, it's like everybody's listening to you to reply to you. But a coach like really is there. They dedicate their time and energy to listen to you and be that light for you, and showing you the light in the tunnel, like, hey, this is where your direction now,
I'm
you want
looking
to
around
go.
for a mirror, but I can't find one because it's the best analogy that there is. But it's effectively
Yeah.
like, I mean, to further your point there, right? Is why is it so common? First of all, why do we have a term midlife crisis, right?
Yeah.
Why can you
Yeah.
get that far into your life? Why have we set up a system for living historically,
Yeah.
especially in Western life, where you can get that far into your life And then the midlife crisis is so common, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get to that point because you don't have clarity up until that point,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You're working a societal framework, right?
Yeah.
As Vishen Lakhiani likes to say, the society scape. You're
Mm-hmm.
literally just plugged into the society scape, climbing rung at a
Yeah.
time, that you're told from childhood that this is what makes you successful, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're sold that. Like, it's actually really sad, but there are marketers that work for large corporations whose
Mm-hmm.
sole job is to get inside the mind of a child, right? So
Oh
the
my
moment
gosh.
the child can start to think, they become a consumer, and everybody, like, so like that exists as a profession. As a parent, what do you do?
That
You
is
know what I mean?
that is so true, and that's why I am so fascinated with the work that I do. Like how you mentioned, how the childhood gets affected with this, and how they're planting these seeds at the moment in our kids' head, and so then that's how we have these midlife crisis. But one of the thing that when I work with my clients, and I because you ask like, what do you do with these things? When I work with my clients, one of the things that I explain is like, it's us parents need to take charge, not some advertisement or marketing that needs to plant the seeds. It's us parents needs to plant the seeds in our kids' mind. And for that, what should we do, or what can we do? Forget about what society is telling you, and forget about the standards that society is setting, and create that environment in your house where your kids are. And right now, specifically in this whole time where kids are spending more time in the house, let's create that space and provide that space to our kids where they can thrive better, and design and I say it like, let me dress up my home for my kids' needs, and not like, okay, this is where my couch goes, or this is where my TV goes. So just to, like, how can I as a parent provide that space to my kids? And that's what I do when I work with my kids. Like, hey, do you want to make sure that your kids don't go through the same thing that you're doing? This is what we need to do. We need to facilitate that environment to our kids, get them ready and to be resilient.
Well, yeah,
Don't
just, I
grow
mean,
up.
at the end of the day, it's questions again, right?
For sure.
It's always questions, and that's
Always.
again, that's why I love coaching. That's what when I first started going through the Jay Shetty certification school,
Mm-hmm.
that was my initial stuck point, right? With
Mm-hmm.
the feedback that I got was because in my previous roles, I was coach, yes, but like trainer and mentor, because I had what the people I was training needed. So I had the trainer hat on still and really wanted to do it. But like, once you fully embrace the power of the question, and you realize that like the most successful people on the planet, they ask the best questions, and not
They do,
externally, but internally, right?
for
So
sure.
when you think about that, if you want people to have epiphanies, if you want people to have breakthroughs, it's just questions, right? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
to the parent out there, it's, what kind of a child do you want to raise,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, if you, I'm assuming someone of character. I'm assuming, someone that respects themselves so that they can respect others. I'm assuming you want someone like, to raise a child that is curious, right? That will
Mm-hmm.
embrace their childlike curiosity and never turn that off, and, like
Yeah.
seek for fulfillment, and the list goes on and on and on.
Yep. Yep.
So if you want to create that, you have to actually ask yourself the question, like, what does
Yes.
the parent of that person do? Like, how does the
Yep.
parent of that child I'm describing behave, right?
Yep.
And then the
Yep.
next question is, am I behaving that way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it takes us again that the question route is the best route, I feel, because we already know the answers. It's just we need that tap and the nudge of the question, to get the reflection out and get the answer out, which actually reminds me that I really, to the point before how you said, like, how can someone come to a coach, like, okay, this is what's happening, how can they seek for help? So can you share some of the factors, like, for them to be willing or accept that, okay, they need help, and for them to be willing to ask for the help or change? Can you share some of the factors that you think will help someone to decide or be willing to change and seek a mindset coach?
Well, just again, it just kind of just starts with the questions they're asking themselves, right? And like,
Mm.
who are they surrounding themselves with?
Mm-hmm.
It can be so random sometimes, right?
Mm.
Like, for example, and this is kind of related but not, but like when I ran my first triathlon, right, like I'd been sober for a bit,
Wow.
but
Mm-hmm.
when I ran my first triathlon, it was incredibly random. It was because I listened to a podcast of David Goggins, who is an ultra marathon runner,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Mm-hmm.
heard him say that, I hate running, I hate brushing my teeth and eating too, but they're necessary things for my survival. So like, he
Mm.
really just got into the running to do something hard every day, right, to punish himself, right, to do something
Mm.
hard. And so I decided that I wanted to be very, very fit again, right? So I was like, I'm going to do something that I would have never signed up for ever before. It's just because the conditions aligned, right? The
Wow.
conditions aligned randomly in a way where I was like, well, yeah, I mean, some friends are going to sign up for triathlon now, and now I've doubled it up, and I've done a half Ironman, and the next goal is an Ironman, right? So inspiration can come from anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but once that initial curiosity is piqued, it's difficult to say where it actually comes from. Sometimes a book comes across your way.
Yeah.
In this world that we live in now, if you're spending any time on YouTube, it's very
Mm.
easy to come across a clip of something on YouTube that starts to speak to you in a way. But I don't know, it's just that usually, because what I find, and I'm sure you found the same thing, is that most of my clients have come through referrals, right? Like most of my
Mm.
clients are through having worked with other clients who are just
Mm-hmm.
wanting to share the growth that
Mm-hmm.
they've had.
Mm-hmm.
And not every client, not every discovery call you have becomes a client, but usually sometimes they come back around because they just weren't ready in that moment, right? So
Mm. I love that.
I'm having a hard time answering your question exactly, because it's difficult to know like what mix or combination of factors for each individual person
Individual different.
makes them ready, because it's an intimidating thing, right? Like think about it. Like I've just recently, like I'm in a group coaching setting because I
Mm-hmm.
want to partake in as a client, and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like put myself out there, put my money where my mouth is. But I also recently just hired a business coach as well, right? Because I'm like,
Mm.
I want to go all in, and I want to get, my business up and running, and the things I'm not
Mm-hmm.
good at, like, the marketing side, I want to get good at it. So, the climate was right. But I was still uncomfortable. I was like, this is a lot of money to pay for a coach.
Mm.
So doing that was really powerful for me, because it made me realize, okay, I'm much clearer now on what it's like to be on the other side of this, and, being told a fee and having to consider, well, what's this worth to me? But things have really started to happen faster since I said yes to that relationship, right? It's funny how it works when you invest in yourself, and when you kind of like go all in. But I don't know. I'd love you to jump in and kind of maybe finish the
I
question for me.
So first of all, I resonated with what you said about being on the other side and investing in our growth. I am such a firm believer on investing in my growth, whether it's about business or my personal development, anything. And so, yeah, it gives us a perspective. And what I learned, so what I really like, I agree with the point that you said, everybody's different. Everybody's unique. Don't know how that willingness is going to come. The willingness in you to change might be from a book. For me, it might be some kind of conversation I had with my kid, or for some it might be a question like you mentioned before. So it looks different. Like there are so many factors that can play a role in in the inspiration for someone to be willing to change, or go for their own, or go for the investment in their personal growth or the professional growth or anything. So you perfectly answered the question. There are so many factors, and
Mhm.
at the end of the day, everybody's different, everybody's
But
unique.
everything that you just said makes me think about something else as well, right? Because like the young impressionable minds, right? You're
Mm,
working with parents, but the beliefs, like a lot of like the success that we have in adult life just
yep,
comes from the belief that we develop, as in childhood. And
yep,
there's so many success stories that you'll hear about, right? Where like somebody comes from a not so positive upbringing, but the
yep.
right person at the right time tells them that they saw something in them, right? And they take
Mm-hmm.
like that human being takes that little nugget of like, this person just didn't have to, but told me they see something in me,
Mm-hmm.
and they become something because of that, right? So you got
Yes.
to ask yourself why, and you got to tell yourself, like, what damage am I doing to
Mm-hmm.
children
The
if
children.
in my frustration I tell them to beat it or stop doing that, or you're never going to be good at that, or whatever. Like the power that an
Mm-hmm.
adult holds with a diminishing offhand remark, it's scary, right?
It's
But
scary.
at the same time, you can change a life at any age by just
Mm-hmm.
telling somebody that you believe in them, or that they have the
Yes.
potential, right? And like
Yes.
being in this space, I'm sure you recognize as well, like that's why I'm here, right? Like, that's why I will never be anywhere else, and I will always be here, is that having been literally in some of the gutters that I've been in, is that, you know, I
Mm,
know that some people have had it worse than me, right? Some people never
mm-hmm,
made it out, right?
mm-hmm.
So like some people definitely have had it worse than me, but like a
Yeah,
lot of people think they have, but haven't come close, right?
yeah.
So the one thing that I now have a very hard time hearing, or have a very hard time listening to, is anybody telling me, well, I've tried everything and
Oh, yes.
nothing works, or you don't know my story. It's like, well,
Yes.
maybe I don't, but do you want to go back and forth for a bit? Because I guarantee you're going to be shocked at some of the things I tell
Mm-hmm.
you, right? So like, if you want to play the victim card, I'll go there with you for a bit, but then we need to leave this behind if you want any amount of growth, because once you want to realize that the pity party is
Yes.
pointless because so
Yes.
many other humans have felt pain in their lives, then, you know, it's go time, right? Let's stay there for a minute, but let's move forward when
Let's
you're
move forward. I love that how you said the pity party's over now. Let's move on. I really
Well, if you want to
resonate
live a
with.
meaningful life, there
Yep.
has to be a statute of limitations on
Yes.
how hard you had it, right? And
Yes.
that might be tough to hear, you know,
Yep.
and that like some people, whenever you have this type of conversation, you're going to piss off one or two people who are going to
For
be like
sure.
really annoyed, where you're like, you don't know how hard it is for me right now. I'm like, no, I,
Mm,
I get that. You know, I also used to just get home and just hang out with a vodka bottle until the vodka bottle was done, pass
mhm,
out, wake up, drink out of the vodka bottle again. So like, I'm saying that to be like, if you want to go there with me, I can, because I
mhm,
have a lot of ugliness in my story, but I embrace
mhm.
all of it now, right? Because it gives me
Right.
the ability to truly greatly enjoy
Mm,
every moment that I live in now, right? Like having
mm,
had gone through all of that.
yeah.
So that's the beauty in it, right? Is that like, no, your situation is not permanent. It's just your current situation. As bad
Yeah.
as it is right now, there is a possibility for better. When you are ready, I'm ready to have that conversation with you, and I'm ready to start building a path for you that will be unique to you, that will, you know, lead you towards a beautiful life. But it's possible for every person.
Amazing.
And that's just what it comes down to at the end, is that like, yes, I genuinely believe that it is possible for every person, or I would not be doing this.
Yes, I couldn't have agreed more. Love how you brought that point that, it's possible. And us having these kind of conversations, and if somebody's listening, they're like, yeah, of course, you don't know my story. And like how you said, we might not know, but let's have that chat. Let me understand you. Let me try to, let me listen to you. We don't, I'm sure I don't know how your story must have been like, the uglier than mine, but let's listen to it and let's move forward.
Mhm.
Because when the train, and I always tell myself this, like when the train leaves one station, in order for the train to go to the next station, it has to be moving. If the train just stops there, it's not going to go any forward. You have to, it can't reach the station that it's looking for. So if you really want to live that fulfilled life, and if you want to if you want to be happy in whatever you're doing, you're gonna have to be that change. You're gonna have to be willing to reach out to someone, or or even do it yourself, like how you mentioned about the personal development whole industry going. So like, how everybody's investing in their growth. Great, do it. But I really believe that having a personal coach can like really speed up the process, because you have that reflection partner, that accountability partner, who can take you dig deep, can take you to the root cause, and like really work with the mindset and take you, have you mentioned, like out of the victimhood, and go on a thriving mode. Sean, this was an amazing, incredible conversation. Like, I really appreciate it. I can just go on and on about the whole journey, and sometimes I might even get confused with my reframing questions because the conversation is just so powerful, how you're bringing the real stories of your life, the clients that you've had. And this has just been amazing. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing with us. And for those of you who are listening to us, we're going to leave all the details for Sean in our show notes. But before we actually even let you go, could you share some of your projects that you're working on? Like, how can someone reach out to you, and how do you work with people, and who do you work with?
Yeah, well, I work with predominantly men. I haven't officially
Mm,
kind of become a men's coach officially, because if the right like relationship comes up, I want to work with the person, right? But the reason that I chose men is that, I feel like there's an opportunity for, to give a little bit more attention to men now, right? There's been this perception of toxic masculinity for a long time. So for a lot of time, it's been like, so much of what it means to be a man has been shamed. Now, granted, men have done some terrible things, right? But not all men are bad for having some masculinity. So some of the biggest growth for me happened when I was in a men's group in recovery, right? So therefore, I want to help other men be better fathers, better husbands, better bosses, better employees, better brothers, whatever role or hat they wear. I just want to send out, more like just people that have a greater ability to be fulfilled and spread joy wherever they go, right? So that's kind of it. But where they can find me is Sean Oldham Coaching on Instagram. I'm growing my social media presence. I was off social media, Instagram, for about 4 to 5 years. So I'm kind of figuring out how this all works again. But figuring out a name, but I'm working on a podcast with a friend, Luke Fenwick, who's another graduate from the Jay Shetty program. So we're going to be filming our first episode this month. I have another IG live project coming with another friend who's been cleansing himself off of Instagram, but coming back in February, where we're just going to like embracing our own journey of, vulnerability. So the name for that is still coming, but if you follow Sean Oldham Coaching on Instagram, all of those will get posted, to through there for sure. Amazing. So the podcast link will probably be available on Apple. But yeah, a lot of things coming, and just a little like a new project seemingly every week. So yeah.
Awesome. So basically, guys, stay tuned because there's a lot coming into his space, and you don't want to miss out on this, because I really think that coming out of that, mess, and now again, I want to repeat that you made your mess to the message, and now you want to help the other people. It's not a joke. It's a tough work. And sharing your experience so openly is, again, beautifully, like, you are doing an incredible job. So stay tuned, guys. He's coming up with a lot of projects. You're going to be hearing a lot of stories from him. So again, thank you, Sean. I really appreciate. And I also wanted to add one of the point that you said, like, you want to work with men. The belief system, like, you are men, grow up or be strong. That is
be a man.
That is, be a man. Yeah, that is because I have seen my husband in the same path as you have been, and it's difficult. What people tell you, like, okay, grow up now, like, be a man, like, you're the man in the house, you wear the pants, and all these things that I have no idea where these things come from, but I bet that's what
leads to a lot of what leads to toxic masculinity, if you will, because it's a broken model.
For
so
sure.
I would, if that kind of is a better way to say it, is that's kind of how I want to change what being a man, right? Yes. So like, when you say go and be a man, it's like, sure, absolutely, I'm going to go and take care of my household and be a role model. And again, it doesn't mean you don't have to be a soft man if you embrace spirituality, right? Like, you can actually be like a very hard man and embrace a lot of your masculinity and still be spiritual, still meditate, still be calm and kind, right? Like, it doesn't have to be two of the same. Like, it doesn't need to be apart.
It doesn't have to be on an extreme. There's no such thing as on being on an extreme level. Like, we can have a balance, or if we don't, or if they don't want a balance, they don't want balance. Like, leave it up to them. Everybody is a unique soul, and they have full rights to be themselves. So on that point, I really want to say that you're doing a wonderful job, and I wish I knew you back then when my husband really needed you. But nevertheless, it's still not late. I'm still sending him your way. So thank you for sharing your journey. And so stay tuned, guys. We're going to be sharing, and we're going to be bringing more coaches your way, and they're sharing their powerful journey, and hopefully you guys get the value and the asset from our conversations, and that'll be it. So for today, thank you, Sean. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for hosting this space.
Thanks for listening to Raise to Rise podcast. We would absolutely love to hear your thoughts about today's episode. Please let me know you have listened to this episode and fill me with your aha moment. Share it on Instagram, tag me with #RaiseToRise or @RaiseToRise, and I would love to share those to my stories and shout you out there. I would also love if you can subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. It's our brand new podcast launch, and we have some bonus giveaways going on for the top raters and reviewers. Also, I would love to send you my 7-day parenting journal absolutely for free. All you gotta do is leave me a review in the iTunes store, take a screenshot, and email it over at raisetorisepodcast@gmail.com. Again, take a screenshot of the review and email me at raisetorisepodcast@gmail.com, and I will send you the 7-day parenting journal absolutely for free. Thank you so much for being the active listener of this podcast. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for raising your consciousness and rising as joyful beings.